Karen. Decided that her tourist status allowed her to do anything. She shoved a guard, crossed boundaries, and demanded attention. But his unexpected reaction changed everything. What happened next? A sunbeam glided over the glittering gates of Buckingham Palace, reflecting off the golden details and illuminating the imposing figure of the guard. His red uniform was immaculate. Every button, every seam, perfect. The bearskin hat added to his grandeur, emphasizing his stillness, as if he were carved from stone. A crowd of tourists gathered at the fence, buzzing like a swarm of bees and clicking away on their cameras. And then, as always, among the curious onlookers stood out the one person you'd never want to encounter. Karen. She appeared as if straight out of a bad sitcom. 45 years old, the full package, plump build, an exaggerated strut, and a t-shirt reading, "I'm always right," as if someone had argued. She wore leopard print shorts so loud they could make a zebra jealous in pink sneakers that had clearly seen more bars than running tracks that day. In one hand, she held a plastic cup with a suspiciously bright pink drink that smelled more alcoholic than refreshing. In the other, a smartphone pointed at the guard. "All right, Mr. Hat, smile. I'm a tourist," she announced loudly. The tall, disciplined guard didn't flinch. His gaze remained fixed forward, as if she were just another part of the city's ambient noise. But Karen wasn't having it. "Hey!" she shouted, stepping closer. "What's with the gloom? Are you a museum mannequin or something? Or does it cost extra to smile?" The crowd laughed. Some chuckled approvingly. Others discreetly filmed the scene. The guard stood statue-like, his composure only fueling Karen's irritation. And then, her eyes lit up with that unmistakable look we all recognize. "I'm about to do something stupid, and I don't care." She took a few steps forward, crossing the white line that clearly marked the boundary. "Hey, robot," she continued. "Come on, crack a smile. Or at least blink." The guard, of course, didn't blink. Not a single muscle twitched on his face. He stood there, a living embodiment of discipline, resolve, and British tradition. Everything Karen seemed determined to mock. "God, is he even alive?" she exclaimed to the crowd. "Seriously, who does this? Are they all this boring?" She waved her plastic cup in front of his face, her movement so bold that a few people in the crowd gasped. "Seriously? He's not even reacting," she muttered in annoyance. "Guess I'll have to liven up this boring party." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Someone shouted disapprovingly, "That's disrespectful." "Get away from him," another person yelled. But Karen thrived on attention. She turned to the protest with a smug grin. "I'm a tourist. I paid a ton of money to come here," she shouted. "They're here for us, so they'd better entertain." Karen was on a roll. The laughter of the crowd and the alcohol in her plastic cup fueled her overconfidence. She waved the cup in the guard's face, as if trying to wake him up. "What, you're too important to talk to us?" she asked with a crooked smirk. The crowd murmured. Some kept recording on their phones, others turned away in embarrassment, and a few whispered, "What a disgrace." But Karen wasn't fazed. In her mind, it was simple. She'd come here, paid for the flight and hotel, and therefore all of London should revolve around her. At that moment, a skinny teenager about 14 years old appeared next to Karen. He had a mop of blonde hair, an oversized leather jacket, and a mischievous glint in his eye, the kind you see in kids who thrive on chaos. "Push him, lady," he said with a wide grin. "Let's see what he does." And this was the turning point. Karen froze for a second, as if weighing her options. But who are we kidding? Of course, she wasn't weighing anything. "Great idea," she exclaimed, hooting. She stepped forward, fully crossing the white line that was clearly there for a reason. Not decoration, but a symbol of restriction. The guard remained motionless, but his taut posture suggested that this was no joke. Then Karen pushed his shoulder. The shove was more for show than force, but the mere act of touching the guard set off an explosion of reactions, like a firecracker in a quiet room. Gasps erupted from the crowd, some horrified, others whispering, "Did she seriously just do that?" A few couldn't suppress laughter, but most looked on with disapproval. The guard suddenly stepped forward, so sharply that Karen jumped back. He turned to face her, his previously indifferent expression now fixed on her with an icy stare. The air seemed to thicken with the weight of his authority. "Madam, you have crossed the line," he said in a low, steady voice that sent shivers down spines. "Step back." The crowd held its breath. Karen, clearly not expecting this, looked momentarily flustered, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, and what are you going to do about it?" she sneered, crossing her arms. "Smile at me?" Her words drew a hum of disapproval from the crowd. "This is too much," muttered an elderly woman, shaking her head. "Why isn't anyone stopping her?" a man nearby asked angrily. But Karen seemed oblivious. She basked in the attention, fully convinced that the moment belonged to her. Meanwhile, the guard discreetly signaled to his partner stationed nearby. Within seconds, the second guard, equally stoic and imposing, radioed the police. Karen saw the gesture, and her face flushed with anger. "Are you kidding me?" she yelled, waving her arms. "The police? Have you lost your mind? I was just joking." Her voice grew less confident with each word. Now, surrounded by disapproving stares and countless cameras aimed at her, Karen began to realize this situation might not end the way she had imagined. The police arrived on the scene quickly, as if someone behind the scenes knew this spectacle was about to spiral out of control. Two officers, both in impeccably pressed uniforms and with unflappable expressions, confidently approached Karen. "Ma'am, please provide your identification," one of them said clearly and calmly, his voice so authoritative that even the nearby spectators felt a chill run down their spines. Karen, however, wasn't the type to back down. Her face contorted with surprise before twisting into anger. "Identification?" she exclaimed indignantly. "Are you kidding me? This was just a joke." The crowd, now completely focused on her reaction, buzzed like a hive. Some were filming, others whispering, while a few openly smirked at her growing tantrum. "I'm a tourist," she continued, waving her arms dramatically. "Do you even understand how much I paid to fly here? I have the right to do whatever I want." This statement sealed her reputation among the spectators. Karen wasn't just rude. She was the very embodiment of everything people despise in entitled tourists. "You have the right to follow the law, ma'am," the second officer replied coolly, already pulling out a notebook to record her information. Karen flailed her arms even more dramatically. "Is this some kind of comedy? Are you serious?" she yelled, attracting even more attention. "Don't you people understand humor?" The officers, however, remained unfazed. Their calm demeanor was a testament to British composure, which, as it turns out, wasn't limited to the palace guards. "If you refuse to provide identification, we will have to escort you to the station," one of them said matter-of-factly. At this moment, Karen seemed to realize that her joke had turned into a very real problem. She started digging through her bag, still loudly protesting. "I didn't do anything wrong. This was just a joke. Why doesn't anyone understand jokes anymore?" But no one seemed to view her behavior as humorous. The crowd, which had been watching the scene unfold, erupted with disapproving comments. "What poor manners," an elderly woman in a hat muttered. "Absolutely disgraceful." "That's how you deal with people like her," a man nearby added, clapping his hands. "Well, now the whole internet's going to see what a rude person she is," a young woman said. recording the entire drama on her phone. And they were right, countless phones were capturing every second of the unfolding chaos. Meanwhile, Karen, now escorted by the officers, was being led toward the police car, still shouting complaints. "You have no right. I'll file a complaint. I'll sue all of you." But her screams were drowned out by the noise of the crowd, which seemed to relish the unexpected conclusion to her outburst. When Karen disappeared from view, the crowd began to disperse, animatedly discussing the incident.